Welcome to the Inside Bristol podcast. My name's Andy Taylor and I'm joined by Stuart and Kiwi this week. No Isaac this week. He's busy sorting out Bradford promotional material and end of season awards because they've had a fun season this year. So none of that from Isaac this week, but we do have obviously the lovely Kiwi and Stuart with us to break down all things that happened over the weekend, which although went smoothly for us to when it comes to getting scores. Thank you for everybody for either sharing or posting. But we had plenty of formats on show this weekend, didn't we? So what we wanted to do is take a little detour into Europe because some of one of Britball's finest was in action in the European leagues this weekend, the Central European Football League, which is one that you can apply / be invited for if you make it to your national finals or one of the better teams in your nation. And this time our representatives were the Bristol Aztecs, and by golly, they did a good job, didn't they? With coming out 46-7 winners over the Amsterdam Crusaders in Bristol, where they hosted. And Stuart, I know you got a lot of eyes on this, and we had Tom at the game as well. And there'll be a report coming out in the next, well, hopefully before you listen to this podcast, to be honest. So head over to the website to read that because he gives you some good insight. But they had one hell of a performance there. It was 31 something at half time, wasn't it?
I think it was 31-0 at half time. I might be wrong, but they just came absolutely flying out the blocks. They scored on their first possession, and Amsterdam. I have a feeling that one of their head coaches was talking about sort of leaving a few players at home as well. So they potentially didn't travel with their strongest squad, but I don't think that detracts from what Bristol have done here. I think they've really put themselves amongst some of, certainly the Central European footballing landscape here, because I have never known a British team to win a round one game. I have a feeling that they were then Tamworth, played against the Towers and lost. I have a feeling
Manchester last year.
I have a feeling that the Titans lost last year, didn't they? Yeah.
And I think, Stuart, just to add to that, I don't think we were in European competition for quite a while before Tamworth, were we? Because obviously, I think there wasn't a league for us to go to for a little while either. But I know we were successful way back when. Some people will be pointing out to the early 2000s, late 90s, where we did win some European competitions. But in recent memory, for sure, I think this is the first one we've had in a long time. Yeah,
because the Warriors tend not to accept the invitation, I believe. It's completely up to them. It is down to them. So it's usually the champions of each European division, which obviously is usually the Warriors, but they tend to forego or opt out, whatever you want to call it. So this time it was invited that the Aztecs as runners-up would go and compete. They obviously accepted, and they have well and truly put the cat amongst the pigeons by beating Amsterdam in round one.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's certainly going to have been a surprise. But reading Tom's report, he was mightily impressed with the quarterback they have this season, who is an American import, as far as I'm aware. They've got strong ties with a number of programs over there in America, and certainly one in particular saw one of their prospects go out, and then one of the American prospects come into their side. I'm scrambling for a name myself. Ethan, isn't it?
Gretzinger, the Bristol QB.
Yes, yeah, and throwing to a former Clemson player in Darius St. Robertson is not too bad, is it? But no, still, I suppose this probably doesn't come as a surprise to a number of people in Britball. What probably is surprising is the actual extent of the result. We all knew that Bristol were good; they could hang tough with the Warriors, who are obviously a fantastic team themselves. We did also feel that potentially quarterback was that big spot where they needed to improve if they wanted to take that next step. And if they can retain this guy for the rest of the season, then my gosh, they're on to something special there. And they've now got Karlstad Crusaders in the next round, haven't they? Who we know are titans of the European circuit. But is there any insight you can provide on the game itself, Stuart? Did you get? Obviously, we're talking about where it was at half time and the final result, but anything stood out to you that the Aztecs were impressive with?
I think holding Amsterdam to 7 points is impressive. Their defensive line were impactful. They sort of suffocated the run game, and then when Amsterdam went to the pass game, there was just pass breakups and a couple of interceptions as well, which is kind of the opposite of what Bristol were doing. Bristol had a really balanced attack. They really sort of churned over the running backs and kept them fresh, and then obviously with the quarterback and receiving core like they've got, they were able to just, chew off the explosive plays for 20, 30 yards, and that really helped. And then they'd just grind it into the end zone when they got into the red zone. So although we're seeing sort of maybe a 10-yard run here and a 3-yard run there for scores, it was all, set up by these explosive plays that chewed up the length of the field and also the clock, because if you control the clock well enough on offense, your defense can come on and be fresh, and that's what it allowed them to do. So I think, yes, the surprise is the margin of victory, and you listen to some of the guys talk after the game, and they were confident they were going to win, and hopefully that confidence rolls over to round 2 where they travel. They play the Warriors this weekend, and then the weekend after is the round 2 game. So it's the 10th and the 11th of May is round 2.
Wow. And Kiwi, this is a big deal, isn't it? I know it's one game, but this is a big deal to showing the progression that's happening down south, and certainly within the Bristol Aztecs, but potentially bigger picture within Britball.
Yeah, I think for me what stands out really is, if I recall, the loss that Manchester suffered in the first round last year was quite heavy. I think it was also away. I think they travelled first, so I'm not sure how much having that home advantage for your first kind of foray into the European football might have benefited Bristol as well, because clearly being the travelling team is a lot tougher. And I think someone said that maybe Amsterdam hadn't brought all of their players, so I think that may make a difference. But just the massive scoreline, even with all of that factored in contention, shows that where people probably thought that Britball wasn't as good or as competitive or as strong as some of those European leagues, obviously this score shows that that's not actually the case anymore. I do worry that they've got 2 tough games back-to-back weeks. To play the Warriors is a big deal, because we know they're going to want to stamp their authority on there if they can, given they lost obviously Britball last year to them. And then so they've got this, and then the Warriors, and then to travel and play another European game. You just hope they've got the squad depth to kind of fulfill all those fixtures and play competitively for all of them. And this is where not just your top starters, right, but your squad depth and the depth of players you've got at certain positions like running back and that D line, those impact players. If you don't have the depth, you're going to start to struggle with these three really tough games on the bounce.
That is the risk, isn't it? And not to mention that they've also got the Blitz the week after that, which, based on opening performances, Blitz have improved this year. So who knows whether they're at that level yet? We'll soon to find out. But that will be a tough 3-week stretch for them, going into a GB bye where a lot of these guys will be heading to that camp as well. So a busy few weeks, and like you say, squad depth being important there. But big congratulations to Bristol. Very proud of you all for going out there and putting on a good show, hosting, which is never easy and is probably costly as well. So well done to them. Shall we have a little look a bit closer to home then in the domestic leagues? And we had 2 games up in the Premiership division this weekend. We had the Coventry Phoenix walked up to Newcastle and came away with another victory, which I think was the same last year, if memory serves. And we got a little bit of insight, which I'm sure Stuart will be happy to share with a couple of comments that we've received, which is nice. And I think the London Warriors corrected this score to 66, just to attack on an extra 2 points there against Cambridgeshire. So I suppose we don't. It's difficult to focus in on such a blowout down south, but to at least acknowledge the sheer power and excellence that's still happening through the London Warriors there. That they'll be eyeing this Aztecs game for sure, won't they? This is the big deal for them. Kiwi, I'll give you a first go, because I know Stuart's had a couple of conversations about the game up in Newcastle. But what's your thoughts on these results that we saw this weekend?
Well, I'll leave Stuart to comment on the North. We obviously had, in our preview last week, said how important this game was. So I'll leave that there. But yeah, like you say, I think, the London Warriors steam train keeps rolling, right? And unfortunately, Cambridge just got on the receiving end of that, steam train coming through. I just hope that it doesn't, get to them. They bounce back, and they've still got. We've said this in this division, right? There's the upper kind of 3 teams, and those bottom 3 teams we're starting to see emerge in the south. So, there's still all to play for to finish mid-table and be safe from potentially those promotion relegation games that we know are happening. So, as much as it can be disheartening to lose by this kind of score, and trust me, I've been on receiving end of a few of them myself, it's important that they bounce back and regroup and keep their focus on that, maintaining their Prem status for next year and being the best, I suppose.
Stuart, then over to you then. I suppose we're not surprised by this result, are we? But it's just starting to paint a picture of a very close Prem North, isn't it?
It is. I think it is coming true to form as to what we were saying. Like, we can't pick who's going to win it, and we also can't pick who's going to get relegated from it. And these are the games that you really want to fall on your side. We, as you say, we got a bit of insight from a few people on this one, and it was kind of, I'll say, semi-live streamed. The Vikings were trying out a new piece of technology to live stream. They have done live streams in the past to good success. But their camera wasn't quite zooming in right. You could see, if you're a coach, it was great all 22 film. But if you're a viewer and you want to see your son play, or you want to, watch Brothers or something like that, it probably wasn't the best film for that. But hey, it's live football that you get to watch. And I don't think the fixture, I don't think the result is kind of a true reflection of how the game went. I think Coventry took care of business, and they could have. I think they had a score called back, so that would have been sort of another 7 points on top. Newcastle were missing their starting quarterback. I think he's the Durham Saints, the
really
American
big point.
Saints.
Yeah.
So as soon as you take someone like that out of your squad, you're gonna have some drop off unless you've got a second backup who's exactly the same. And I think it happened to Newcastle this time last season as well, didn't it? They sort of had an explosion out the blocks, and they were like, oh look, second in the division behind Manchester, and then it was like they dropped off in sort of game 6 or 7 and 8, which left them perilously close to missing out on playoff football. And in the end, they travelled and got beat by the Warriors in the semi-finals, didn't they? So, yeah, it was a game that's probably closer on paper than it was on screen. The reports that we got, somebody used the word unspectacular for Coventry, just sort of going through the motions type thing. They scored on special teams as well, which obviously always helps if you're playing through all 3 phases of your game. And then, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this flips when Newcastle come down to Coventry. Again, if Newcastle have the quarterback, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce the surname. I think it's Paqueta. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they perform with him back at the helm when they come down to Coventry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just keep hearing that the Coventry Phoenix are not executing appropriate well enough to their standards yet. So they've come away with a 2-point loss and a 7-point win. And I think that's in that, in what I'm hearing from some people I know in there, they're saying that, we're not doing well enough ourselves, and I think they're still confident that they can improve and continue to come on good at the end, which they did last year, right? That was what they did. So that'll be some really hard to travel that far and come away with a win, and they did it. And so we can't take away from that, can we? But it does leave more questions than answers, doesn't it, for that division, and maybe a bit more worryingly when you compare that to the top two in the south at the moment. That we might just see a repeat of things when we come to the postseason as well. But talking about the Warriors, though, there's nothing separating them between the other top two. In the Blitz and the Aztecs, they're scoring at 55 points a game, and the only thing separating them is the fact that Warriors have conceded some points, the other two haven't. So madness, absolute madness, but great to see that there is still some of that excellence down south as well. Let's have a little look at Division 1 then. We go to the north first, where we saw the Rossendale Bucks play an associate game with the Clyde Valley Blackhawks, and Clyde Valley travelled all the way down to Rossendale, which is Burnley area, isn't it? Or near that region anyway, and came away 26-20. Counts for nothing, but except for momentum and good film and good reps for both sides, of course. So we'll quickly skip over that one and then concentrate on the others. And Stuart, is there anything that stands out to you in these fixtures? Oh, sorry, in these results that we had?
I think I'll leave the north to you guys. So that's kind of like your foray, and I'll talk about the Midlands. I think seeing Sandwell not concede against Shropshire is the biggest thing. We sort of talked about how the Shropshire Bulls game was really, really close, and how Shropshire had sort of not executed well enough to sort of knock the dust off in game one. It seems like some of the dust may well still be there, metaphorically and literally, playing on the dusty surface over in I would say playing in Sandwell, but they don't quite play in Sandwell. So yeah, playing against Sandwell, and they get their second win on the board. Sort of back in Division 1, they'll be looking to sort of hold their own, and I think with the 2 wins on the board they've got already and the performances they're putting up, I think they'll be confident of staying up, and they'll now have loftier heights of, okay, can we get into the first round of the playoffs perhaps. And then Surge beating Birmingham, again, it's an eye-catching result. It kind of leaves Birmingham a little bit adrift now at the bottom, and they'll be hoping to sort of pick a win up, or pick 2 wins up now, isn't it? They've got to pick up to sort of avoid the threat of the relegation, playoff, play in, play against game, whatever it is, that happens there. So yeah, I think that division, we kind of build it as a fairly close division, but I now think we're starting to get that divide versus the sort of the 2 at the top, the 1 at the bottom, and then the 2 in between.
It feels like Birmingham have improved, but they've got stiffer opposition this year. From what I'm hearing from the programme, and certainly our friend Jason will give us comments whenever he can, and obviously he'll put them out on social himself as well. If the feeling that I'm getting, not being able to watch the games, is that actually the Bulls have improved. They're just it's not being seen on the scoreboard, which will be tough, because obviously they don't have the likes of a Leicester to go up against, who were obviously not doing so well last year, were they? To kind of beat for relegation, but obviously it's playoffs this time, so they will have a chance to still stay in the division regardless of what happens. But they'll be disappointed with those last 2 games. Sandwell, I completely agree with you, probably looking beyond staying up now, aren't they? And they're looking for post-season football, because as far as I'm concerned, they've beaten 2 of their contenders for that second spot, if not the first, and we'll see how they do when they face against Northants. But Kiwi, closer to us, we have the Nighthawks have now beaten Sheffield twice, which is unheard of, by the way, in Hawks history. We usually either tie with them or tie the series. And then Chester still haven't put a point on the board. Where do you want to go with your thoughts?
Well, arguably, business as usual and no shock, I would say, in either of those results, because they were both repeats of fixtures we've already seen this season, right? So you've got the Nighthawks extending their win over Sheffield. I think the first game was 23-13.
Yep.
So we've gone, put some more points on, kept Sheffield to a slightly less points. So, and then the same in the Yorkshire game, I think. I want to say it was 20-something nil the first time round, and now we're looking at 40-0. Obviously, worryingly for the Romans, as we touched on in our podcast last week, is, as you say, their offense really struggling to fire and get going. We're just not really seeing anything coming from that. We obviously mentioned the kind of struggles that they've been through over the past couple of seasons in terms of their head coach leaving to go back to the US, and Levi, and he was, big on the whole air raid offense, really pushing that kind of offensive drive. I think we've seen them struggle. But yeah, it's definitely worrying that they're still not scoring, but then arguably they've played probably the top teams in the division, right? So
Yeah,
I think then the next lot of fixtures are where we're going to start to see, are they, going to end up at the bottom of the pile, or are they just kind of sitting in the middle? Because it's hard to tell with the games that they've had. I don't think any of us are surprised at the games that they've lost so far. Maybe that it's a nil score. But again, is it just that those two teams at the top are that much better? Or is it that they're, at the bottom? We need to wait and see what happens over the coming weeks. But yeah, not ideal to have no points on the board in 3 games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just, when I saw the results come through as we were populating it all, I just thought to myself, we've learned nothing. We've actually learned nothing out of those 2 games. So what we do know is that the Nighthawks are better than Giants. That's it. What we do know is that Yorkshire are better than Chester. That's so I don't really know what else that we've learned out of that. I think for Chester, their season is going to be the Hawks and Giants games. They've had a stinker of a start when it comes to playing against the Rams twice and Alphas. Thank you, BAFA, I would be saying if I was a Roman. But that's it now. They'll need to reset and start tackling these next 3 games that they've got. I think it's 3 where they face their other foes, and then we'll see what the Nighthawks are. Then we'll see what the Giants and Chester Romans are. So I think we'll learn more in the coming weeks rather than what we've seen now.
And you never know. I will say I've been witness to several Merseyside Romans derbies over the years before they obviously got separated with the Nighthawks being in the Prem. I'll be honest, I've seen many of them turn into chaos in various forms. So there's always that element of that fixture, I think, as well, that you just can't call. We could see, even if we think the Nighthawks are better, I think those real traditional derby games like you see between the Nighthawks and the Romans, we've seen players moving around. We know there's been a lot of player movement and attrition between the teams. It's going to make for an interesting fixture when we get to that point later in the season.
It's certainly something I've circled on my calendar to go and see, because they are always a lot of fun. But hopefully we'll get to learn about certainly I'm interested about the Giants, where are they at? Because they've seemingly across 2 games, they've dipped, but they are coming across an ex-Prem team. I know the Nighthawks probably haven't been a Premiership side for a number of seasons, depending on what analysis you apply. So, we'll see. We'll see how they do, but it's nice to see as an ex-Nighthawk. It's nice to see that they are actually able to score some points, which is fantastic, which they haven't done for a number of years now. Let's have a look at the South then. And Stuart, I'll give you a bit more first dibs on this as well. There's a number of interesting scores there, and the one division that I can't seem to get my head around at the moment, probably because there's not enough of them, not of the games yet, is that East division.
Yeah, I think the score lines are so close, it kind of suggests that there's a little bit of parity in that division. Either that or the teams just haven't quite solidified the playbook knowledge just yet. And they're just kind of spluttering to results. Obviously, we don't get to see an awful lot of it.
being down that far south, unfortunately, guys. It's just not something we travel to. Same with the Scottish games, despite being invited up to a few of them. You know, we would love to take everybody up on their offer of getting into these games. But yeah, like Colchester and Essex coming into this division, knew that Kent and London Olympians were going to be tough opposition. But it seems like both teams have managed to hold themselves to a decent standard. You know, conceding 12 against well-established clubs is no mean feat, especially when you compare that to what the Somerset Wyverns did against South Wales Warriors, who just seemed to score on all sorts of plays. A couple of guys have messaged me and mentioned that they scored on all three phases of the game. There was a big injury in that game as well, so we hope that player is on the mend and on the road to recovery. But yeah, it just seems like that division, it's going to take a few more weeks for us to go, okay, these are the front runners. These are the guys that are looking to avoid the drop, shall we call it, for the time being. And yeah, what's going to happen in between? For me, the one fixture that caught my eye was the Blitz B. Getting that result on the board, because we were starting to ask questions about who are they, where are they, what their program like. Obviously, their A team had a bit of a slip last year, but they seem to be back on the rails this year. What knock-on effect has that had? Have a lot of the Blitz B team from last year promoted into the A's and solidified that team? But yeah, they certainly got back on the board with a 27-14 win over the Portsmouth Dreadnoughts this weekend. And the Sussex Thunder, who had a stinker result at home 2 weeks ago, have got a good win on the board against Berkshire. And I think that's the one that they were sort of cherry picking to be like, okay, can we take a couple of wins off these guys to avoid that sort of drop, as I called it a minute or so ago. So yeah, it seems like they might have righted their own ship, as it were, to get a win on the board there.
Yeah, my biggest worry about those four teams that you've mentioned, which are the Colchester Gladiators, Essex Tridents, Sussex Thunder and the Berkshire Renegades, all four of which were Division 2 teams last year. Colchester earned the right by far to come up, so did Essex Tridents. If you go by the second best team in the Division 2 South, they did not score a lot of points. No, all four of those teams last year did not score a lot of points, and I was just having a little look, and between them, across 7 games, they've scored 40 points between all four of them. So I am concerned that is going to become a problem for them when they come up against Division 1 offences, and they might just have to beat each other. But yeah, that London Blitz game could be a season starter for them, couldn't it? They'll probably rue that loss to the Berkshire Renegades down the line, but it's a loss against Wembley Stallions is not embarrassing, is it? You know that they were playoff football last year, but it looks like that the London Blitz could have started their season this week. Kiwi, anything from you, or should we hop skip into Division 2?
No, I think, yeah, you've said most of it really for me. I think what's interesting in that SFC Central is you've obviously got Wembley on top, and then with this win coming from Blitz, we're still sitting here going, oh, I'm not sure who's going to end up second in that division. Have you got, because I would have said Portsmouth, but now you're kind of like, oh, well, Blitz have put themselves in the mix. So I think that's where that one gets interesting, because clearly we can see Wembley emerging at the top. But when you talk about playoff football, again, the rest of that division for me is kind of still a question mark, right? Particularly those 3 teams in the middle.
I've just had a little look forward, which we don't do that much, but have a little look at London Blitz B to see if our theory sticks. Well, they're on a 2-week bye, and then they travel to Wembley. So my theory of it being a season starter might not be quite there, but it might bring them confidence to travel to Wembley. Who knows? But they then they have a double header across 2 weeks of Sussex Thunder, so who knows? But yeah, interesting nonetheless. Let's have a little look then at Division 2. Hopefully I've got the right one up here. Only 2 games this week. We saw the Leicester Panthers hand it to the Lincolnshire Bombers, travelling away in 40-3 was the score there. And then in the SFT2 East, Oxford Saints, welcome to the party. They ended up finishing 24-9 victors against the Ipswich Cardinals. So I suppose, Stuart, we've got Leicester Panthers. You know, they're doing very well. Their litmus test is going to be Lancashire. We said that last week. Anything changed in that regard? Otherwise, we can skip, can't we, over to Oxford and start breaking that down.
Yeah, I just think we start to sort of praise Oxford. I think Leicester will take care of business in that division. I can't see them struggling too much. I think Lancashire will provide a little speed bump. I think it might slow them down a little bit, but it depends on how well Lancashire prepare for that game. But I just see this juggernaut of the Leicester Panthers sort of bouncing, and I believe that they will probably come up against the likes of the Birmingham Bulls or someone else from the Southern Division and just go, you know what, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to go up. We're going to re-establish ourselves in Division 1. So, yeah, I think looking down, I think the Oxford Saints took care of business against the Ipswich Cardinals. They put up a good result. Only conceding 9 points is solid defense in my book. If you only concede 9 points, you're probably going to win a game of football, especially if your offense is sort of capable, shall I say. I don't have a lot of detail around this game. Their unders got in touch with us and gave us some details about their unders games, which we'll come on to in a bit. But yeah, I think Oxford Saints took care of business. Had a good run out, and I'm sure we'll now look forward to the next one and hope to keep that momentum going.
It was a memorial game, wasn't it? I believe, and they were raising funds for I think it was a charity in relation to that. So, you know, I hope it went well for them. It would have been an emotional time for them as well, but they got the victory, which is what they were after. And I saw our old friend Willie Mike was PA on the day as well. So I hope they had a good event there, which hopefully this is the start of the bounce back for Oxford, because, you know, they had a stinker of a year last year, and fingers crossed. They've got another host another game, but they've got 3 games on the bounce now, and fingers crossed that they can continue to. I think it was execution on offense last year which let them down, but they did have a very leaky defense, so that'll be a very positive result for them all round, I'm sure. If you're an Oxford Saint, and Kiwi, are you happy for us to bump onto NWFL then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, go ahead, because
I have to eat my words.
On the face of it, right? Oh my God, Birmingham Lions just beat the Teesside Steelers, which is the truth. Probably not the whole truth, is it? But for those who aren't watching, the Birmingham Lions hosted the Teesside Steelers, who we had considered whether they would be a bit stronger than last year. They came away 12-8 victors at home to the Teesside Steelers. So let's talk.
Yeah, I think firstly, full credit to Teesside, right? To travel to Birmingham and play Birmingham at home in their opening fixture when they're obviously coming off that championship game, you know, that win of the division last year over London in that close game. That's massive. And to be fair, like I said, I do actually have to eat my words a little bit, because I said I thought it would be more of a blowout, much the same as we saw last season. Although I will caveat that with, as you said, we did allude to the fact that we think Teesside's ranks have been bolstered a little bit with the demise of Leeds, which I believe to be true. I've seen some team pictures, and there's definitely a few faces in the Teesside squad that are guys from Leeds. So that's definitely
that's called stalking.
It's not stalking when it's team.
I know.
I'm pretty sure that's what I'm meant to do, right? Aaron says that's what I should do for every podcast.
100%. Totally. You came prepared.
Well, a little bit. But yeah, I think what's interesting is when you look at this on the face, is it, did Teesside play really well? Or did Birmingham maybe not play as well as we expected? Having not been able to get to the game because I had to unfortunately take my stepdaughter to a teenage birthday party, which is a whole other nightmare. I would much rather have been in Birmingham. It's hard to know, and I guess we'll wait and see what happens with the rest of the fixtures, whether it is just Birmingham starting out. There's some rust, there's some dust, there's things that they need to figure out. First game back after a bit of a break, after obviously the off-season break. Or is it that Teesside are significantly stronger than we saw last season with the bolster of their ranks from Leeds? And obviously their second year in nines, so they're obviously adapted to the full field football. Obviously they started out in nines, only came up to nines last year. So yeah, an interesting one. I don't have the answers. If anyone from any of the teams would like to send us some information on the game, I did reach out to a few people, but hadn't had any kind of real feedback on what the difference was on the day. But I did see some social media from Teesside saying they were, absolutely thrilled with shall we say, sticking it to Birmingham.
Yeah.
Which, if you've been around the women's game for any period of time, and Birmingham and London, I'm sure are well aware, the rest of us spend our time thinking, if we can get any points past them, let alone stick it to them and get a close game, that's an amazing achievement. So, well done Teesside on that. And Birmingham, we wait to see what you come back with in your next fixture when we get there.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing, and to give props to BAFA for how they've set up the Premiership nines this year, is that we get to see some of these comparative fixtures, don't we? And unlike last year where there wasn't two divisions, but if you looked at the fixtures, there pretty much was. They divided the fixtures in north and south, didn't they? Really. In a way, not literally, don't come at me, but it did feel that way when you put Solent against London twice. But we do get to see Teesside against Solent. We do get to see Teesside against Manchester. We will see Birmingham versus London before a final. So as well as Birmingham versus Solent. So it'll be great to see how we can compare them, won't it? Before we get to playoff football. Which is what I'm looking forward to. More games like that is what we want to see in the women's league, isn't it? Stuart, did you get any insight from anyone around Birmingham?
Funnily enough, I haven't. No, not sort of in depth. Similar to what Kiwi said, I've heard a couple of rumours that it was sort of a tough game. Birmingham perhaps left chances and points out on the field. First game rust, first game jitters, first game gelling the team together. So we do have
bingo.
Yeah. It's all of this. Yeah, we didn't perform as we should have done. A lot of coachy type speak or player type speak, and sometimes it is granted, and it is full credit. If you're fumbling the football, if you're not passing it accurately, fine, put it down to that. It's when that is your excuse in game 4 or game 5, and we're like, come on guys, we're 3 months down the line of training. 3 months down the line of training now. You know what that person runs like, what they catch like, what their partner's name is, what the kids are doing. That's not an issue anymore. What is an issue is you're just not executing. And it'd be interesting to see in 2 weeks' time, when I'm pretty sure it's a double header, when Birmingham play London and Teesside play Solent, and I'm pretty sure it's back-to-back double-header game weekend. That'll be the one that we go, okay, are you executing? Are you taking your chances? Are you up for the fight? It'll be really interesting.
Certainly not the time for a get right game, is it?
Nope.
Playing the London Warriors, which is currently down on League Republic in Birmingham, University of Birmingham.
I was going to say that. Is it in Birmingham? Is that on the 10th?
Yeah,
I'm going to put that in my diary.
That'll be a good day, won't it?
I may well see you there.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do my best with all of my children in tow to get to that fixture for sure.
Brilliant. Right, fantastic stuff. Let's move on to the under-19s. So we will not be talking about their Division 2 this week because unfortunately their tournament got abandoned early on. We're waiting to hear official word out of that, but certainly there was some very frustrated coaches talking to us about that day, and I fully appreciate it. Sounds like there was an injury to a player who dislocated a knee. I believe, which is never nice. But after a long pause, it was deemed inappropriate to continue. So the less said about that, because I don't want to wind anybody up, but we'll wait for official word on that if we haven't already. I haven't looked, so we'll quickly move on and talk about. Oh, go on, Stuart.
On League Republic, there have been 2 walkovers awarded. So the Berkshire Renegades games have been awarded to the other team. So the Poole Dolphins have taken a win over the Berkshire Renegades, and the Bristol Aztecs have taken a win over the Berkshire Renegades.
That's right.
And it's just the other 2 games that are in question and that we don't know any official wording on. So, that's kind of the update from the weekend. But yeah, everything else is sort of as you said.
Yeah, we'll wait for the newsletter to come out when that drops from BAFA. Maybe that'll give us a bit of an insight about what the official ruling was anyway. So Division 1 though, we did have some close, one close game up in Scotland where we had East Kilbride travel to Highland, who I think have made the step up to under 19s for the this year, haven't they? I don't think they were an 19s team last year. And so East Kilbride, congratulations, you gave away 35-24 wins. The winners there. I got chatting to some guys at Nottingham Caesars Juniors after their 48-6 win over Samwell. They're very happy to have the Easter break over, and they had a lot of their players back who were involved in universities. So they were had a good strength side in that game. And then London Blitz are back, apparently, Stuart, because they've took it to South London Renegades and stomped them 66. Anything else stand out to you?
Not particularly. I think East Kilbride were chomping at the bit to get back onto winning ways after losing to the Napier Knights in game 1. I think they were really looking to jump back on that, and I'm pretty sure you are correct. I'm pretty sure Highland, it is their first year at U19 level. They've been extremely successful at sort of U16 level. So yeah, I think a lot of their guys are now graduating through that program, and it's great to see programs growing at each level. My surprise was the deficit between Nottingham and Sandwell. I know that a couple of Nottingham coaches were sort of interested to what Sandwell were because they hadn't seen or heard a lot around the Sandwell Steelers under-19s program, who kind of excelled last year. They sort of had a really good first year. And yeah, it just seems like that what you've said about gaining players back from university and being really prepared, they've kind of really taken it to Sandwell in that game. So I'm sure we'll see more of Sandwell. I'm sure they'll continue to grow. And I have a feeling that a few of their guys graduated after last year. They were sort of mature under 19s, sort of in the division last year. So yeah, the deficit of defeat there. And then, as you say, Blitz coming back, they kind of faltered a little bit last year, didn't they? They sort of, they're usually a stalwart of the U19 game. And yeah, I think for them to come back in and put 60 points on crosstown rivals in the Renegades there is a statement first victory.
And no doubt they'll be looking towards this week's game, which we'll talk about in a little minute, I'm sure. Shall we bounce quickly onto... oh, that's it, isn't it? So that's it for the results this week. We're on to fixtures, aren't we? Fantastic. Great job, team, going through all of them and being able to pull them all together as well. We'll release the updated standings as we go sometime this week as well. And we'll talk about them when we can. So let's have a little look briefly, because I don't want to keep you here too long, at the fixtures that are due this week. I'm just getting myself ready. So we have the Prem, where we've got 4 games across this week, which is exciting because we always love to see excessive Prem ball. But Kiwi, I'll give you first dibs at a game that's standing out to you, and I'm sure I know which one you're going to say.
Can I pick 2?
Give me one.
Can I pick 2?
Go on then.
No, I can't just pick one. Well,
do it. Do it.
I think, okay, so in the north, obviously Coventry, Manchester, I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to kind of stack up. Then obviously equally the Nottingham and KP games. We've already said we don't know where this division is shaking out, so all of these fixtures feel like they're important at the moment. But really, if I'm honest, we're all just excited to see London play Bristol, right? Let's be honest, I'm sure that everybody else is going to say the same thing, but we're all just super excited to see that happen, right? That repeat of the final. How well are Bristol doing with their win last week? We talked about all of that earlier, but yeah, that's what I'm excited to see this week, if I'm honest.
2 years ago, Aztecs gave London Warriors their first regular season loss in, I don't know, distant memory, wasn't it? Last year, the Warriors went undefeated, beat the Aztecs 3 times last year, obviously. But this time, Aztecs seem to have a quarterback and some star players, some very recognisable offensive linemen, some very recognisable names across both lines. If you've been paid any slight attention to European League of Football, but the Warriors are the Warriors, and they seem to have been unchanged, and they are going to bring it for sure. I am very much looking forward to the first rendition of probably many London Warriors versus Bristol Aztecs. So definitely there. Stuart, anything else to say other than the London Warriors Bristol Aztecs?
I love the way that we went with Kiwi. You can have 1 game, and she was like, "Can I have 2?" And then she names 3.
She gave us 3.
Sorry.
Leave me with the last one. Give me with the last one.
But you can talk about the other ones.
So I'll go with the Manchester Titans, and obviously we've seen a much changed program over the last 4 or 5 months there. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring to 2025. See what the new look Manchester Titans are all about. They've changed a lot off the field. They've changed a lot on the field because they've now got a 90-yard field with rollable goals. So they will have a lot of new about them this season. So I will be interested to see how they fare against the Coventry Phoenix. Granted, it's away from home. But yeah, there's a little bit of needle there that I'm sure they will be looking to come out and prove a point that last year, wasn't a blip because they didn't have a bad season, right? But it's with all the changeover that momentum isn't lost.
Oh, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them.
The thing with Manchester is, well, it's not just player rotation, right? Their head coach, they've got a different head coach. The
new head coach, Luke Carlton's gone. Sam Bloomfield's gone. Leadership in the defense is gone. They've still got the same DC, who's the head coach, obviously. I'm not right. I will never write off the Manchester Titans based on what they've done in the last 4 to 5 years. But you've run clubs before. You've had these transitions before. It's always tough when you've got this sort of change, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. They'll obviously come out with a point to prove that all of this change hasn't affected them. But I think you could say the Coventry team who's, played, this isn't their first run out. You've got a Manchester team with all of these changes away, against this Coventry team. It's a tough ask, I think, for them to win. We all hope and pray that what they've built in Manchester is able to survive these many changes. But we all know how hard it is when you're rebuilding such a squad, when you've had that massive change of players, and I think it would be unfair to expect them to perform to the exact same level, although we all know that's what they'll be aiming for.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They'll still be strong along the lines of scrimmage, but we know that's also where Coventry can be quite strong as well. So, I'm very intrigued by this matchup because we'll actually get an idea of whether actually Coventry are any good, and then it'll be the first time we see Manchester, won't it? Which Manchester have travelled down to Coventry most times in the previous years and come away with a victory. So there'll be a lot of Coventry players looking to get one over there for sure. Quick jaunt over to Division 1 of Adult Contact. There's some juicy matchups, isn't there? But I'm going to steal one because I normally give you guys first dibs, but I'm going to give one. I'm going to take one first. I'm not going to take the obvious one. I'm going to take the one that I'm really interested in, which is this South Wales Warriors Solent Thrashers game, because I think these are the top 2 in the division. And South Wales Warriors did well last year, but they came up against a party pooper in the Bristol Apache, if memory serves. I think they were in the same division last year, if memory is right. And then we've got Solent, who were on the up They're on the bounce back. They've made major changes, but how good are they? And I think this is where we're going to find out which one's better than the other, and how good Southern Thrashers are doing. South Wales Warriors won't know what they've done with themselves, scoring 38, 39 points last week, because they never score that amount. But what they did do, which they always do, is not concede a point. So it's not surprising. But yeah, I'm really interested in that SFC 1 West matchup this weekend. Kiwi, what about yourself?
No, let Stuart have it first, because I stole all the other games before.
You stole the other three. Go on,
You know,
Stuart.
I'll let Stuart have this one first, because we all know what we're looking at here, right? So.
It's a night of stealing, because I was going to pick South Wales. So my second game.
No, you weren't.
My second game was the next one up. So my second game was London Kent. So again, I mentioned how they were both stalwarts of the British game. And I think that has either like a 6-3 or a 9-3 game, or it has like a 28-21 type fixture. It could either be really, really tight and cagey, or explosive and entertaining for everyone that goes and sees it. I hope it's the latter. I hope it's entertaining. I hope it's high-paced, high-octane football. But you know, knowing some of the coaches around the Olympians program, they won't want to concede points. That you know, they pride themselves on hard-nosed defensive football, and I just think that game will be one that I look at on Sunday afternoon when I finish work again, and go, yeah, okay, that's kind of going to be the front runner there for the East Division.
Yeah, go on then, Kiwi. Take us home with the obvious one in the north.
Well, obviously, we're all excited to see the Yorkshire Rams and the Scunthorpe Alphas play each other. We already talked about, you know, before we talked about results, about how we clearly think these are the top two teams in this division. So this is where, you know, I'm excited to see, you know, who is coming out on top. I suspect probably Yorkshire, if I was going to be a betting person, in my opinion, based on some of the scores that we've seen. But I remain to be seen. I refuse to pick it over under Stuart, so let's not go there. But yeah, this is what I'm here to see. Right, I want to see where this shakes out at the end of the weekend.
Big game for Scunthorpe, isn't it? If they want to be taking that division championship, they not only need to come away with a win, they need to beat them by more than 1 point, so they can come away with the head-to-head there. They're relatively close on points conceded. Rams less at the moment than Scunthorpe, so it's a really big game for the Alphas if they plan on winning the division. Yorkshire, I would say this is their final tough game. That's my prediction. I think if they come away with this, get the head-to-head against Scunthorpe, the rest could be a formality for them. But I still suspect this will be probably the second of 3 games we see against them, because I would not be surprised if we see them seeing each other again in the post-season. That's my prediction anyway. And I think I wrote it down on a website, so I don't think I'm saying anything too surprising there. So Division 2, very briefly then, Stuart. We've got a number of interesting games, haven't we, across this one? But is there any in particular that stand out to you?
Very briefly cover pretty much a full slate of Division 2 football. I think the Vanguard will get back on track. I think they will take care of the return matchup for their first game of the season. That Hereford-Swindon game at bottom really intrigues me. I'm really sort of looking forward to that one. I know it's a bit close to home with Hereford, but again, 2 clubs that have really established themselves well again in the southwest, if you want to call it that one. And then Isaac's not here to talk about the north, so I don't think we really do it justice enough without him. But again, I think there might be a couple of games that are referee affected. So just keep your eye out on team socials and reach out to guys if you see that a game isn't covered by BAFA officials that you can help out with, because I know our operations team has sent out several pleas, and we've sort of spread our crews as much as we can to cover every single game. But yeah, just keep your eyes out, and if you are interested, another shameless plug to pop an application in.
Yeah, no, tricky. I know for years it's been tricky to try and cover all the Northeast games, hasn't it, with Scottish games going on at the same time. Interesting to see how Darlow are affected. I didn't get a timeline, but obviously they've announced a new coaching setup, haven't they, at Darlington. I didn't quite figure a timeline as to whether that's happened recently or happened and it's just a delayed announcement. Stuart, I'm just seeing if you're about to interject there with some information, but no, again, it'd be interesting to see if they keep going with those big changes, because they are running away with the division as it stands. Are they? My memory tainted. Where are they? 1-1. So
Yeah.
lied to himself. He's come up against Humber, but nonetheless, still interested to see what Darlington do. But then, my pick actually was going to be Oxford versus Ouse Valley, because we don't know where either team are at, and it feels like that those two could potentially be the class of the division. So this could be an important game for Oxford if they're going to keep going on, based on last week's results as well. But Kiwi, what about yourself?
I think that Wakefield Darlow game for me is the one. We've heard Isaac talk much and extensively about this division being quite close to home for him, but they're both those two teams. Again, you've kind of got Humber at the top, and then you've got these two teams sort of sitting vying for that second place as it's kind of looking at the moment. So I think that's where the game that's going to be interesting. And as you say, not sure whether those changes at Darlington are new or delayed announcements, but things like that can have an impact as well if it has been a change halfway through the season. So yeah, an important one probably for those two teams, as you say, to get the head-to-head over the other if things end up where we think one of those is likely to be second in that division.
Yeah, well, Darlow need it if they're correcting themselves. They're going to need it if they're going to keep up with Humber, who are doing very well this year as well, and they've got a Doncaster side who are leaking a lot of points on defence. Kiwi, we've got another Prem game. We've got a team that we're wondering whether they're much improved and are able to challenge the top two against one of the top two.
Yeah, and obviously we've mentioned before, Solent played London twice last year, and that kind of mashup of random fixtures that we saw in this division last year. We saw them improve massively between those two games against London, that they played their first two games back to back against London. So, again, we've only got kind of that matchup they played against Manchester last week before, to go off how they're performing. It was an impressive win, but again, that was a fixture that we hadn't seen before. So this is really one for them to be able to, put a line in the sand and say, we're keeping up with your London and Birmingham, or we're still sitting in the middle with the rest of these kind of teams, with those two other teams clearly at the top. So yeah, an interesting one, a tough game as well, but at least they're at home. So that often makes a difference as well. I know that traveling to London, playing in London is tough. So, at least they're at home, and it'll be interesting to see if they are closer or, where they end up versus London from last year.
Yeah, it'll be a very interesting result, won't it? And based on both sides, they've both got a lot of GB quality, haven't they, throughout? So it's going to be a clash of some very, very skillful and quick players. If I remember, most of the GB players that are involved there. Swiftly move on then, Stuart, to the under-19s. We've got some Division 1 action up and down the division. I can imagine that there's one game that sticks out though.
We've got a lot of action, haven't we? And yeah, you mentioned one game. It's going to be that London derby between Warriors and Blitz, isn't it? It's going to be, are the Blitz back, or sort of are the Warriors going to hold that? Because the Warriors kind of came back into contention last season and sort of knocking the Blitz off their perch, to use a term that I've heard a lot recently. Won't mention why. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether the Blitz can continue the momentum from their massive result over the Renegades last weekend. And then back up in Scotland, Napier Knights get their go at the Highland Wildcats. And they'll look to keep up with the EKP Pirates at the top of that division by taking that win. So yeah, those are the two fixtures that sort of catch my eye there.
Yeah, It'll be interesting to see how dominant the Nottingham Caesars are against the Northants Knights. If they continue that domination that they've been showing, or whether the Northants, who very much did well last year, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they were they were close, if not confirmed as playoff football last year, but I haven't got it in front of me. But I think one of the better games will be the Swindon Storm Rushmore Knights down in the south as well. What can Rushmore continue going with that impressive program that they've got against the Swindon Storm? That seem to be similar to what we've mentioned with other programs, Stuart. They're graduating together, and they're growing together, and they're now in Division 1 at the under-19s as well, which is fantastic to see. Kiwi, is it got any insight for here, or do you want us to keep moving?
No, just that I'm always here for a derby game, and we know that a London Warriors London Blitz game, regardless of the division, is. I talked about the Nighthawks and the Romans earlier. I think this is even more so that kind of London traditional derby between Warriors and Blitz. Doesn't matter the division, doesn't matter anything like that. It's always going to be a good one.
Yeah, they were separated by 6 points across the 2 games last year. So it's it should be a cracking 2 games, and they tied 1-1 in the end across the series. So I'm looking forward to seeing which London team is going to be crowned this year. Right, under 16s, there's plenty of them, Stuart, so we can whip through them. But if we start up in the northwest, we've got some familiar foes to each other, albeit Chorley Buccaneers. Is that right?
No, that's a copy and paste error. I've even asked them on socials whether they're still Chorley and Lancashire. I have a feeling that this just might not have been corrected yet. So it is the Lancashire Buccaneers. They've rebranded across all their programmes. Ignore me. I will get that sorted before it goes out at the weekend. But yeah, we've got loads of under 16s tournaments, and it's great to see the sort of spread that we've now got coming at this level, because it's only going to benefit the game throughout a whole as these guys sort of mature and grow and develop and get good quality coaching. So yeah, in this division, you know, you've got the Titans who have been around, you've got the Giants who have got a strong program. So yeah, I think those are the 2 clubs that I'm probably going to watch out for across this tournament.
Yeah, the Lancashire Bucks, the Chester Romans, they're all well established now, aren't they? And you know, it's really good to see that they're able to do. We can't really add much more than that because they've not played this year, have we? And we know that there's always a lot of change. We've also got a game up in the northeast in that reshuffled division, because I know they had some late dropouts there in that division, didn't they, if memory serves. We've got Darlington, Lincolnshire and Yorkshire battling it out up that way, which is always great to see. You know, Lincolnshire obviously new, Darlington relatively new as well, although who knows how much of that is Gateshead and how much of that is Northeast and so on, which we were touching upon last week. But again, fantastic to see. I'm rolling through these because we don't have much more to add, do we, guys? While we don't have any data points. Berkshire, you know, they've had a rough start in the unders, haven't they? Certainly at under 19 level. Hopefully they're able to. That's not the case here, but we also see the defending champions in Rushmore here as well, don't we? As well as some Oxford Saints and Solent Seahawks, and we've seen these already, haven't we? Is it these under 16s division that we've seen already, or am I making that up?
I feel like these are a couple of weeks ago, were they not?
Yeah, a lot of these sort of rotate through. It's just different hosts. So because the teams are the same in each division, they just host and play each other several different times.
Yeah.
So yeah, it may well just be that we're seeing the graphic that looks similar, but the host team may be different.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself that we've seen this one before, but yeah, brilliant. And then we've got also down in the southeast, Wembley Stallions are hosting Kent, London Blitz, and Hertfordshire Cheetahs as well. So good luck to all of them. Everybody stay healthy, and we'll look forward to seeing what those results come out as, because we're starting to gather pace very quickly, and all of a sudden we're heading towards week 5, which is just insanity in my head. I don't know how we keep up with it, to be honest. Flying through it,
I was
aren't
just
we?
gonna just thinking, and shout out to all of those under 16 teams that are organising and hosting tournaments, having been involved in organising football and being involved in tournament football when I was playing contact for women. We're still in the tournament football. It's a massive undertaking to organise these tournaments, having several teams coming in, having facilities available, managing changing rooms, and all of that. So, you know, I just think maybe shout out to assumably parents and volunteers who are organising these under 16s tournaments, right? Because it's a massive undertaking. So I think that often gets missed when we talk about these, you know, tournament style fixtures. Actually, yes, hosting a game day is a big deal, but hosting, you know, 4 games with multiple teams in one location is a lot of organisation. So, you know, putting it out there that, you know, without those kind of volunteers and club managers and parents probably in this situation, you know, those tournaments wouldn't be taking place.
Yeah, we'll give the under 16s a good look at next week. Once we've got a few more fixtures on the board. Obviously, we've had a couple so far, but we'll give them a bit more attention once we've got these results in this week. So best of luck to everybody. And that's it for this week. Thank you very much, Stuart and Kiwi, as always, for giving your insight. But look forward to having a little look at some of those cracker games that we've pointed out, because there's plenty of them up and down the country, isn't there, this week, which we're all looking forward to. Kiwi and Aaron and I will get together sooner or later to discuss all things NFFL, which we'll get to ASAP. And hopefully that'll be very, very soon, and we'll be back again with you next week to talk all things American football leading up to the flag weekend as well. But for now, thank you very much for listening and watching, and guys, thank you very much for your time. We'll catch you again very soon.